We just kind of had a desert for a little while, right? There wasn't a big scene.
Sort of the dark days of craft beer in Austin. You know, it just wasn't a lot of stimulating activity.
If you look at the micros, though, you know, Live Oak, Real Ale, those guys quietly chugged along, you know, double-digit growth all through that period. You know, and a lot of what those of us who have come later have done is following in their footsteps.
We hadn't had a new production brewery since I can't even remember. And now we just have this, almost a shotgun of breweries starting up.
I think there was a lot of people who were planning breweries at the same time, and then all of a sudden they just all hit at the same time. Like they were doing it independently of each other. But you know how it is when there's like an idea that's in the general atmosphere, a lot of people come to it at the same time and just boom, now we're in this wave of breweries opening up.
Within the past year and a half to 2 years, the number of microbreweries in Austin has more than doubled. It's a growing trend.
There's a whole younger bunch of guys that are into doing this and have some good ideas and a lot of enthusiasm. People are making good beer, getting people's attention. It's great.
Actually, the reason we chose to open up the brewery here in Austin is because of the brewing atmosphere. The burgeoning craft beer market is just, it's spreading like wildfire.
Cheers.
It's the same thing that's happened across the country. It's just taken a little longer to get to Texas. And it's just a reawakening of the beer culture, of knowing where your food and your beer comes from. And I think people are just tuned into that a little more now than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
It's hard for a retailer now. We added 8 taps this year, thinking they'd kind of take care of the onslaught, and they're still open. And you know, we try to embrace everyone. So we're rotating more of our taps now, trying to give everybody a shot.
There's definitely competition for tap handles, and that's how it's always been, but it's a little elevated now, so yeah, it's tough.
I own a place called Red's Porch, and we have 30 beers on draft. I thought 30 would be plenty. I could use 30 more, because if we really do want to support local beers, and there's just so many more of them than there were even just 2 years ago. I'm interested to see where it goes. I hope it continues. I'd like to see a similar growth spurt in brew pubs in Austin.
Brew pubs still hasn't seen a similar explosion like that, and maybe economical reasons that it's more costly, a lot more overhead. This place very easily reached about $1 million in construction and labor and all that.
You're building a beer manufacturing facility, the restaurant's a food manufacturing facility, and a retail space to enjoy that in. So you have 3 basic businesses going on, and they're big. Whereas you can get a micro, which costs much less for larger capacity. And distribution, although it's a problem, it's not that expensive, to get yourself off the ground and get rolling.
Micros, the margins might not be so big, but they've got this broad distribution network that's geographically diverse, but it's also diversified by the bars they're in. Like if a bar closes down, whatever, there's another bar opens in that spot or someplace else, and they can keep selling their beers.
There's a lot more craft bars or bars that are having more and more beer selections coming up as well. So as more of those open, it gives us more places to go.
I think if you look at the established bars that have 85 taps and you view them as your benchmark for, is there enough tap space there? Probably not. But when you run out of taps at one bar, right down the street there's a new bar opening up with new taps. And then there's another restaurant over here opening up.
Every restaurant that goes in now seems to know that they can't get away with just having, the big 3. Because people are going into those restaurants and saying, hey, I'd like a Fireman's 4, or hey, I'd like an Austin Amber, or hey, do you have anything from Jester King? And they're finding themselves going, who, what?
As Austinites, I think we are more conscious of consuming local products and buying local.
People are trying to buy food local, vegetables local, and they're all over any beer that is local they can identify with Austin or with Texas.
As people learn more about beer, they will want a more regional beer. They'll want beer that is made a few miles away because they're more knowledgeable about freshness, they're more knowledgeable about the people who actually make the beer.
If you look at U.S. history or even world history, beer was always this kind of fiercely, local, even neighborhood or village-based thing, where every collection of people would have its own baker, its own winemaker, its own brewer, its own butcher. And I think, people are kind of desiring to get back to that. Just as there are a bunch of production breweries coming in line in Texas, there's just as many nano breweries, which are breweries that tend to be brewed half a barrel to 4 barrels at a time, a very small amount of beer that's just kind of distributed in your neighborhood.
Nano breweries are tiny, something that's glorified home brewing. Because there's never been a bar here, we didn't know what to expect. Everybody tells you it's a good idea until no one shows up, and then they all tell you what a stupid idea you had. It's a lot better to have a $100,000 stupid idea than a $500,000 stupid idea. Dripping's a bedroom community. It's a small town. If we pull people in from South Austin, that's great, but we can't make that our sole focus of business.
My focus is my wife and my kids. Then I'm focused on the people of Wimberley. So we don't have a desire to be famous or to be recognized or to be anything but what we're supposed to be right here in this community.
Yeah, the idea is always to get bigger and distribute, but not for us. Not for us. I'm in retirement, and I want to do what I want to do. I don't want a big 15-barrel or 20 or 30-barrel system. I just want to enjoy myself. And I enjoy our clientele. They're local people. They all come in. They know us very well. They're good people. And often as not, many of them will step back and help me brew.
If we could go back to, regional breweries, regional, local, people, I think, would be able to enjoy more diversity. I try to keep 8 beers on tap that I brew right here, and it's tough. You can't do that with some of the national chains. They serve the same product 12 months a year.
I'm just doing a keg at a time, and that's hard to keep up with demand. But it also frees us up to make beer more frequently, jump around in styles, experiment more, be a little riskier because you're not investing so much money.
Someone like me, I run a small system, who wants to do something more crafty, you couldn't do if you wanted to go to 30-barrel brew house. You couldn't screen print labels, cut them out by hand, bottle them by hand, cork them. It's not going to happen, and that's fine. That's what they do, and this is what I do. And I think there's room for everyone, and I've come to find out it's not competition, it's culture, purely. Everyone wins when good beer is being made, regardless of by whom or how much they're making. Look at what good Anheuser-Busch did. They're considered the enemy, but they brought our country together with a beer, it's significant.